Yay! Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. There you are. So as I say, anybody here for the first time, we're delighted you're here. If you'd like a visitor's pack, just raise your hand and we're happy to give you a visitor's pack. And you can pick one up too at the desk as we go out. So here we are, all of us in the sanctuary today, enthusiasts. I'm knowing that. We're looking at enthusiasm today. And when you go to the dictionary, and I love to do that because nothing is ever one thing. And a word is never just about one word. There are many other words that back up each word. And when you go to look up enthusiasm, you see things like intense joy. Don't you love that? Intense joy, fire, spirit, power, passion, gusto, zest, zeal, and many more. All very energized words full of energy. And they describe what an enthusiast is all about. And all of us are called to be spiritual enthusiasts, are we not? Of course we are. Indeed we are. And enthusiasm is an energy that is so magnetic that it draws, it attracts, it pulls into itself like energy. And when we're in the company of an enthusiast, and several, my goodness, we can't help but be drawn into that. We want to join in. We want to be part of and join in and so on. It's how enthusiasm works. Enthusiasm is something that it's caught. You can't teach it. You can't give it to someone. It's caught because it's an energy that bubbles up from within you, from inside of you, and it comes up out of that deep well of joy that's at the center core of our being. And what it is really is just the impulse of spirit wanting you to have a greater time, a better and deeper and higher and wider expression. It wants to express itself through you in a much bigger and greater way. That's what it bubbles up from, that enthusiasm. And when it catches us, it's like fire catching. It spreads and it spreads and it spreads and it spreads. And it's hard to quench it. It's hard to quench it. And within you and within me, there is this amazing enthusiast that knows life is good and all is well, and I'm okay in it. There is the enthusiast in us that causes us to feel and to be and to experience in a very light and buoyant way. It really does. Enthusiasm is that within us that spreads joy. It spreads goodwill. It spreads light. It spreads life. It spreads love. Enthusiasm is that which just takes us out of, drags us, sucks us out of the mediocre, away from the commonplace, and takes us into a much more sparkly and radiant way of being. Enthusiasm shines and sparkles and glitters. Enthusiasm inspires, it uplifts, it encourages. Enthusiasm puts a hop, skip, and jump in our step. Enthusiasm causes us to sing and causes others to want to join in our song. That's what enthusiasm does. And it feels great. It feels like life is great and I'm great in it. It feels like connection. It feels like involvement. It feels like engagement. It feels really good. And it shows up in all kinds of amazing, amazing ways. I love the way it showed up in Patch Adams, Dr. Patch Adams. Dr. Patch Adams is a doctor that's so in love with his children, his patients. So absolutely enthusiastic about getting them up and out and healthy and well again. that his enthusiasm showed up in the appearance, in the guise of a gentle clown. A gentle clown, full of mirth, full of humor, full of joy, full of laughter. And from the persona of this gentle clown, he served and serves his little patients. And everybody around him just could not be anything other than filled with his own sense of enthusiasm and joy. Loved by not only his patients, his little ones, but by the parents and by the staff too. Love the way enthusiasm shows up in somebody like a Dr. Patch Adams. And this week we ask ourselves, how does it show up in me? How does enthusiasm show up in me? How does it show up in me as the cheerleader, somebody who can cheer people on, somebody who can be intuitive enough to be able to believe in someone when they've stopped believing in themselves and give them a little boost that sets them, back on the road to rediscovering the true self of themselves? How does it show up in us? I mean, there are so many ways it can. Enthusiasm turns the lazy amongst us into get up and get going kind of people. The uninspired into productive people, and so on. It's a magic, or so it would seem, that overcomes us. And we can't help but feel it's time to roll up our sleeves and get up and be. Enthusiasm wakes us up so that we can live out loud, know we're alive, and let life know we're in it. That's what enthusiasm does. I love the story of the general who went to visit a training camp one summer, and he was addressing paratroopers. And when he finished addressing them, he was just casually talking to all the men, and he was asking them various and sundry questions. And one of them was, well, what do you find as your experience as you're about to jump out of a plane? And of course, most of the men were saying things like, oh, it's such a rush, it's such a high, it's so great, the adrenaline flow is amazing. It's the most fantastic experience you could ever have. It's the closest thing to flying you can come to. It's an amazing experience. It's freedom in those first few moments of free falling. It's freedom. It's freedom. And then he came to one young man and he said, sir, for me, he said, it scares me to death. Just before I step out there, I am scared to death. And the general was surprised. And he said, well, if that's the case, why do you do it? And he said, well, look around you. He says, you see all these guys, see all these men? He said, they're full of passion for what they do. They love what they do. They appreciate what they do. They respect what they do. They understand the importance of what they do. And I love that kind of passion and that kind of enthusiasm, and I really love being around people who are like that. And I know around these fellows, one day I'm going to feel like they're going to feel when I jump out of a plane. And I'll get the same high they get, and I won't be afraid anymore. And that's what enthusiasm does for us all. It takes us out of the scarediness. It takes us out of the fear. It takes us out of the inability to risk. It overcomes us. It's such a full-body thing. It's not just a thought. It's a feeling that fills us all up. It's a charge that impels us to move and to get into the flow of life, the stream of life, and be a swimmer in it, you see. And what would we have to be enthusiastic about, we students of truth, we students of, the science of mind and the practice of the heart? What is it that could cause us to be enthusiastic? Well, I wouldn't know where to begin to answer that question. There are so many things that would cause us to be enthusiastic. I just wouldn't know. I would have to begin with, okay, the greatest of all things that enthuses me is the gift of awareness, awareness, awareness. that I should know certain things that I didn't know before and that many other people don't seem to be aware of. Things like, well, wow, there is a power for good in the universe. This power is greater than I am, and I get to use it. And then when I go further and deeper into that, I realize that this power is the Almighty. This power is the first cause. It's the creator of everything. It's the creator out of which all life flows and all creation is formed. It is the power of the creator that creates and sustains all that it creates and maintains all that it creates, and more than that, advances all that it creates. And more than that, I get even more excited as I go into the more. There's more, and more than that, it enters into all that it creates in its full omniscience. It enters into all that it creates. And being omniscient means it is all-knowing, it is all-powerful, and it's everywhere present. In its fullness and in its entirety, in every single thing that it created, it is present in its fullness and its entirety for those who are aware, for those who know, for those who have reveal that from within their intuitive awareness inside of themselves. Wow. That I should know that the Almighty, the creator of it all, the sustainer and the maintainer and the advancer of all life, is right here where I am, occupying every aspect of my being. Hey, maybe that's something to be enthusiastic about. Regardless of my conduct, my behavior, my thinking, my feeling, regardless of that, no matter how broken down I might seem to appear, that almighty omniscience is within me in its full glory, no matter what. Even though I might have ignored it, done everything possible to destroy it, which is impossible, it nevertheless remains with me, full-bodied, full-charged, full-empowered, where I am. And at any moment, I decide I can turn my life around and I can own what's there, claim what's there, and begin to think from it and feel from it and be in it and act from it. And then, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, boom! My life becomes this glorious, wonderful thing that it was meant to be, in spite of my poor, sad, silly, ignorant self that was. Isn't that something to be enthusiastic about and amazed by and be in awe and be in wonder because of? Oh, my dear ones, we too can be like Elizabeth Barrett Browning when she discovered that earth is crammed with heaven and every common bush afire with God, but only those who see take off their shoes. The rest sit around and pluck blackberries. This week we ask ourselves, are we amongst the pluckers of the blackberries? Or are we amongst the ones who take off their shoes and are awed by the fire of life and embrace it and move into it and dance in it and sing in it and decide from it? I'm telling you, my dear ones, it's within you. I don't care what state you're in. I don't care what your circumstances are, or mine either. It's within us. It's within us. The genius is within, and it awaits our waking up to it and our revelation of it. And the world needs that right now. It needs you to awaken that inner intuitive intelligence, that inner genius within you, and to live from that essence and experience so that we can raise up the energy on this plane and bring about a transformation. You and I are not here for more information every Sunday, or in class for more information every class. We're here for transformation, not information. We all have a ton of information. We want transformation, we want experience, but the only way we're going to be transformed, the only way we're going to get the experience is by the renewing of our minds, the reprogramming of our minds. When we reprogram our minds, we reprogram our emotional stamina, we reprogram our bodies. Just do that. There's the breath of your life. That's the almighty, infinite, intelligent power of the universe. That's the subtle energy. That's your essential self. That's how close it is to you. We do not breathe sufficiently or consciously enough. We breathe shallowly and unaware. And if we were to fill up our lungs knowing that what we're filling up our lungs with is the breath of life itself, if we were to empty our lungs down as low as we could go, we'd realize that what we're breathing out is the breath of life itself. We're breathing in the breath of life, we're breathing out the breath of life. And when you're breathing properly, you breathe right up to the highest you can go in your lungs, and you breathe out to the lowest you can go with your lungs. And as you do, you're consciously aware that this is the cosmic energy of the universe. This is the force that flows out of the divine matrix, which is the creative womb of all of life. And it's there breathing you. And you can choose to breathe it any old which way you want to breathe it. Shallowly or fully. And you can breathe life into the good that you desire. That's how you give it life. That's how you bring it into being. I can be enthusiastic about understanding how do I access this amazing force, this incredible omniscience, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. Well, the first thing I have to do is recognize that it exists, isn't it? I have to realize that it exists. And how do I do that? I have to be open to its possibility. I have to be open if I am, of little faith. I believe, help thou my unbelief, a great prayer. If I'm of little faith, I have to at least be open to the possibility that it is so. And as I become more open to the possibility that this power and this presence is so, I begin to feel it more and feel it more and feel it more. And then I begin to believe it. And then I begin to believe it. And then I begin to believe it. And then I begin to know it. I begin to know it. I begin to know it. And as I know it, I experience it showing up in my life. I experience it showing up in my life. And then the next step for me to do is to identify with it. Yes, that power is present. Yes, it's a palpable presence. Yes, I know it exists. But the awesome part of all of that is knowing. Since it's omnipresent and it exists, I exist in it. It exists in me. Wow. Chief Seattle, whom I love, in 1854 said, "We do not create the web of life. We are a strand in it, but what we do with that web affects us deeply and all life besides." What are we doing in the web of life? How are we being in the web of life? Are we adding to its strength, or are we creating holes in it? What are we doing? Spiritual enthusiasts like to spin and weave and strengthen and empower. They do not like to mess up and destroy. This week is our week to ask ourselves, where am I along this line of enthusiasm? And that has nothing to do with anything other than the energy that you and I allow to bubble up in us and to flow out from us and to move through us in a way that creates great good. Christ within us, our hope and glory, the scripture says. Christ within us, the hope and glory, which is the genius within us, which is the infinite presence within us, you see. Jesus, the master teacher, was able to access that Christ and reveal that Christ. And that's amazing. But what's more amazing is he said, you can do it too. Now that's the most astounding part of that. Not that he did, but that he said, you can do it too, and so can I. That amazing presence and its infinite intention for you being that you should flourish and that you should thrive and that you should have life in abundance and that your joy may be complete and that you should enter into the kingdom of your good and enjoy every single gift of the kingdom. That's the only will of God for you. There's no other will of God other than that for you or anybody else. Regardless of how we are or who we are, that's the will of God. If there is a will of God, that's the will of God. There is a divine design for you, there is a divine design for me. And that divine design tells us that we can unleash the hidden, unlimited potential, unlimited possibility within each one of us. And as Ernest Holmes says, it is your privilege and my privilege to give birth to it. But you have to choose to. And giving birth is it's not all, sunshine and roses, as any woman will tell you who has ever birthed a child. There are birth pangs. So birthing has with it a certain amount of turbulence and truculence and so agitation, to say the least, and so on. But my goodness me, when you bring that thing to birth, how well worthwhile it all was. And so you and I, as an enthusiast, would have the spiritual fortitude, the spiritual courage to go through all of that, smiling all the way, knowing it's bringing me into a greater, wonderful good. It's just a passage through. And I will not be frightened or disturbed by it. I will go through it. And if I go through it willingly, I will go through it more quickly. If I go through it without resistance, I will go through it much more quickly. And on the other side, I'll be so jazzed by what I'm experiencing, I won't even remember the turbulence and the truculence behind me. I won't. So my dear ones, it's given to you and it's given to me to be any way we want to be, to have any good we want to have, to bring into our lives whatever we want to bring into our lives that adds to our lives and supports our lives, affirms our lives, uplifts our lives and the life of everybody else around us. It's given to you to be able to do that, and me too. Because right where I am, God is. And where God is, all is well. How many times have you heard me say that? How many times have you said that yourself? Right where I am, God is. And where God is, all is well. Do you believe that a little bit? Yes. Do you believe it a little bit? Yes. Now that's the truth. And I think that's great, because a little is enough to get the rest going. You only need a little bit of yeast to raise the whole loaf of bread. That's all. Work on the little bit that you have, the little bit of belief that you have, the little faith that you have. Work on it. Let it grow. Open yourself. Throw the gates of your mind open. Throw the gates of your heart open. Say, I trust the creative process in my life. I trust it. I trust it. I trust it. And I trust myself in it. So let's say that now. Right where I am, God is. And where God is, all is well. I trust the creative process in my life. And I trust myself in it. And so it is.
We invite you to experience Dr. Moira in person on Sundays. Our services are at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., and childcare is available. Please join us. If you enjoy these messages and would like to make a donation to our center, please visit our website at redondocsl.org. Thank you for your support of this ministry.